Every power system needs a leash. No matter how creative or innovative your abilities are, without some kind of limiter, your battles will lose their most essential ingredient. That is, their tension. To solve this, almost nearly every shonen relies on the same trope, an energy system. Think of chakra, mana, ki, cursed energy. The name changes, but the idea is always the same. An invisible battery that keeps battles in check. I like to use a bucket and tap analogy. Let me cook here. Every character is carrying around an invisible bucket that is filled with their respective energy system. Some characters' buckets are huge, while some are tiny, which is usually down to genetics, training, or both. Meanwhile, the tap controls how much of that energy a character can release at once. So someone with a small bucket but large tap might be able to unleash one massive attack before being drained dry, while someone with a large bucket but with a narrow tap can keep pumping out weaker moves almost endlessly. Of course, many power systems don't stop there, rightfully so. Some go deeper, introducing other variables like replenishment speed, which is how quickly your bucket fills back up, efficiency, how much energy actually translates into power versus how much is wasted, or control, how precisely a character can manage the flow of their energy. These are all ideas that I encourage any writer to blend into their power system. Together, these reveal the true purpose and strength of an energy system, that is to blend fights with an essential element of strategy. Characters can't just recklessly spam their strongest moves forever. They have to conserve, to gamble, and sometimes to risk running out at the worst possible moment. At their best, these systems don't just make fights more intense, they dictate the outcome of the fights themselves. But at their worst, these systems blend into background noise, often revealing plot convenience or outright contradictions. So, how do you make a good energy system? What are some examples of the best energy systems in anime, and where do authors often go wrong? Well, in this video, that's exactly what we're going to find out. So stick around, you might just learn something important. Chakra is the energy system of Naruto, and in all fairness, one of the most well thought out energy systems in all of shonen. While it does get a bit weird towards the end, what with the aliens and all, Kishimoto still managed to create an energy system that far surpassed its contemporaries. Chakra is defined as a combination of a person's physical energy and spiritual energy, which can be refined and molded to produce techniques called Jutsu. It is the battery behind every technique in the series, from the most basic cloning jutsu to the most destructive forbidden arts. Every ninja has a limited pool, and the size of that is massively influenced by genetics and natural talent, and maybe a bit of training, because Kishimoto couldn't decide if he wanted to make a Nepo baby fanfiction or a hard work beats talent narrative. Regardless of that, in the early series, this system truly shines. Chakra is a lot more involved, actively serving character conflicts and strategy. One of the earliest examples of this happens within the Land of the Waves arc. Chakra is a very active element of that fight. Without the strain of Chakra, Kakashi would easily be able to handle Zabuza and Haku by himself, but due to the massive amounts of Chakra his Sharingan requires, and his otherwise average reserves, the longer the fight drags out, the more dangerous it becomes for him due to exhaustion. His chakra limitations are the key reason his students, the protagonists, even matter in this fight. Or take Naruto vs Neji, which happens a couple arcs later. One element of chakra that makes it more interesting is its biological connection. Your chakra flows out of tenketsu points, and someone like Neji, through the gentle fist, is capable of closing off those points, which essentially seals away your chakra. So when Neji does this to Naruto, it should essentially finish the fight. But Naruto manages to somewhat plan ahead, using his secondary external source of chakra, the nine-tailed fox, to completely catch Neji by surprise, which alongside the smart use of clone jutsu is the turning point that allows him to win the fight. In both of these moments, chakra works perfectly. It is a clear limiter that separates characters in unique ways, and creates tensions whenever those reserves start to run dry. You truly feel the weight of every move because chakra is a finite, meaningful resource. But as the series scales up, chakra begins to lose that meaning. What started as a clever limiter becomes more of a background detail, conveniently mentioned or ignored depending on the moment. The series does alright through Shippuden, but the illusion of chakra's importance really begins to fall apart completely during the war arc. Take Susanoo, a literal massive suit of pure chakra that serves as both the perfect offense and the perfect defense. Rightfully, it is an incredibly taxing ability, described as your every cell being on fire and requiring an absurd amount of chakra to use. Maybe not. Sasuke used it for hours at a time, but it still has the weakness of slowly blinding the user, returning that essential element of no, never mind. He got past that. Well, at the very least, you still need the Sharingan to use it, right? It'd be ridiculous if a character who had, say, lost both of their eyes was still somehow capable of using a technique that literally requires special eyes to be used. Nah, that would never happen. At a point, the war arc essentially becomes a display of long-range nuclear warfare, because by the end of the series, chakra is such a non-issue that characters can literally spam mountain range obliterating attacks without so much as breaking a sweat. Their taps become as wide as the Grand Canyon, and their buckets become, well, infinite. At the very least, Kishimoto did seem to remember his energy system at the very final portion of the series, at Sasuke and Naruto's final battle. And it's that very last sequence that made me remember what I loved about this series. Not the country-shattering explosion that happened an episode prior, but the strategies, desperation, and tactical depth applied by both characters at the very end. And that's the tragedy of Naruto's chakra system. What once began as one of the most balanced and narratively rich limiters in shonen ended up collapsing under the weight of escalating power creep. Of course, we can't forget the most important energy system of all, the one we deal with every single day: stamina. Forget chakra and forget cursed energy. The one thing that actually has an effect on your life is how long you can stay awake and functioning. Like, I've been hitting the gym early and earlier, and by the time I come back home to make these videos, I feel like my stamina bar is flashing red. But luckily, that's where the partner of today's video comes in: Gamer Subs. Gamer Subs is... I can say whatever I want? Oh, cool. Well then. For a basic explanation, Gamer Subs is a zero-sugar, low-calorie energy formula designed to give you better focus and endurance without a crash. Imagine popping a stamina potion mid-fight. Kinda feels like that. So whether I'm editing videos into the late night, like right now, or just trying not to collapse after leg day, Gamer Subs is pretty good at keeping me running. If you want to try it out, Gamer Subs actually offers free, yes, free sample packs, so anyone can try them out for themselves. And if you're looking to stock up or just want to support the channel, you can use code PINESHERE at checkout for 10% off any order. Just hit the link in the description and grab yours. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Jujutsu Kaisen gets a lot of criticism. Some of it is well-deserved, but most of it, the vast majority, is completely baseless, given by people who consume the series off of TikTok. Because if there's one thing Jujutsu Kaisen absolutely nailed from start to finish, it would be its power system. More specifically, its consistency with the series' energy system. In Jujutsu Kaisen, humans naturally produce cursed energy, which is an internal energy born from negative emotions. Most people just leak it unconsciously, which in turn gives birth to cursed spirits. But sorcerers, the main profession of this verse, are capable of harnessing this energy, using it to fuel their cursed techniques. It's a simple yet effective setup. What makes cursed energy stand out is its versatility, because in practice, it is far more than just an invisible stamina bar. Cursed energy is the very reason a lot of the main antagonists exist. I mean, they're made out of the thing, and is capable of being weaponized to such an extent that Yuji Itadori for the vast majority of the series was capable of relying purely on raw cursed energy to keep up with the scale of the plot. Even beyond that, the system constantly expands in innovative, consistent ways. What happens when you flip cursed energy? Well, you get positive energy, which is capable of being used for healing or reversing the effects of your techniques. If you manage to time your cursed energy application just right, well, you can land a Black Flash, which is essentially a critical strike with devastating multipliers. Some characters forego cursed energy entirely, gaining heavenly restrictions, which massively boost their physicality instead. Every addition feels like a natural extension of the same core rules, not a contradiction. But what I truly love and appreciate about cursed energy is how much it actually decides fights. One of the most prevalent cases of this actually comes about from domain expansions. They're almost always instant win conditions, an ability that guarantees your every attack will land. But here's the catch, they massively drain the user of their cursed energy, leaving them vulnerable once they collapse. So look at Mahito versus Yuji and Todo. Mahito's final loss to Yuji isn't just because Yuji overpowered him. It's because Mahito spent his energy recklessly during the fight, stacking high-cost move after high-cost move until he had nothing left. The fight's outcome was dictated as much by resource management as it was by raw strength. So from output to efficiency, to control and reinforcement, to reverse techniques, and to heavenly restrictions. Cursed energy is one of the most consistent and well-developed energy systems in modern shonen. It's not just a limiter, it's the foundation of every battle in the story itself. And honestly, I encourage any author to use it as a blueprint when designing their own. So far, we've looked at an energy system with a strong foundation that eventually lost its way, and another that stayed consistent from start to finish. But now, let's look at an energy system that was weak almost from the ground up. Mana from solo leveling. And to be clear, I'm not talking about the mana used by other characters in the verse. I mean specifically Sun Jingwoo's mana, which is connected to the system. His abilities are modeled after video game mechanics, and so his mana bar functions exactly like you'd expect. A generic stamina bar that drains whenever he casts a skill or summons his army. And that's where the problem begins. In other series like Naruto or Jujutsu Kaisen, the energy system manages to evolve beyond just being a limiter. They branch into their series' respective world building, and are capable of being used for countless other forms of utility, from sticking to walls or being timed right to land critical hits. These being additional uses that create tension and creativity in battle. Jinwoo's mana system is entirely just a number on a stat screen. There are no clever interactions, no secondary uses, nothing. It exists purely as a meter. But the meter at least does its job, right? Like, that's the point of the video. Surely, it realistically and fairly limits Jinwoo's use of his abilities. No, not really. The cycle is the same each time. Jinwoo fights a boss that conveniently has an army of minions that his shadows can aura farm on. The boss wipes out the rest of the shadows, Jinwoo's mana runs low, and he turns to the camera and says some shit like, "Guess I'm going solo on this one," and then he solos it, name of the series appears, roll credits, absolute cinema, just give it anime of the year, just give it anime of the year. This gets even worse when you realize this fake tension doesn't even matter half the time. Jinwoo can literally buy an infinite stockpile of mana potions that instantly refill a portion of his mana bar. So the system fails at its only job of being a limiter. And while that works for hype, it makes for one of the weakest energy systems in modern anime storytelling. It feels much more like an afterthought than a system actually crafted to enhance the story. At the very least, there seems to be another version of mana present in the story that is much more intertwined with the series' lore. But because none of the other characters actually matter, it's not even that relevant in the first place. At the end of the day, energy systems are somehow one of the simplest tropes in battle storytelling, yet also one of the most important. They are the primary leash that keeps abilities grounded, adding an essential element that adds weight to every decision in battle. So the lesson here is simple. The best energy systems are far more than just fuel tanks. They're storytelling tools. They create vulnerability and force strategy, and sometimes, like Jujutsu Kaisen's relation to negative emotions, can even reflect the themes of the story itself. So the next time you're watching an anime with an energy system present, ask yourself, is it actually consistently adding stakes, or is it just background noise? Because that one detail might be the difference between a fight you forget tomorrow and one that actually sticks with you for a while. Thank you for watching. Got any energy systems that you love? Well, leave them in the comment section down below. Don't forget to check out GamerSupps and use my code PINESHEAD to get 10% off any of your purchases. Anyway, if you liked the video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.